Hello, guys. Welcome. I'm Mike Goldstein, founder of EasyDatingCoach.com. I've got such an exciting interview for you guys today. We've got my close friend, Laura Kennedy. And what's so exciting about today's topic is a lot of the time I'm talking about like outward strategy of like, here's how we're going to do online dating. But she's going to talk about how to get you freaking ready for dating so you are the best version of yourself. So you come out like a freaking rock star where men just want to gravitate towards you. And basically, if you follow this, my job becomes so much easier. It's just like, all right, let's just go hunting because we've done all the work. We are ready to roll. So Laura, say hello to everybody. Welcome.
Yes. Hello. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate the intro there. And yeah, I am super fired up to chat with you and have a great conversation for your viewers.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, Laura.
Yes.
The title of this and what we're talking about is what is the secret to find love that lasts? What is it?
Okay. So it's really simple, to be honest. I mean, it may not be super easy to implement, but we can get to chatting about that later. Really, the kind of the secret sauce or the secret formula, if you will, it comes down to two things. And you kind of even almost touched on it a little bit in your intro, so it's a bit of a sneak peek. But really, the two things that you need for success in love and dating, the first one being action, right? And that's where you help a lot of people is like getting out there, online dating or in person or kind of the strategy sort of side to things. And then the second one is the aligned energy. And so what I mean by that is, like you were saying, like getting yourself ready energetically, really showing up as your highest self. So like the absolute best version of you that is, confident and trusting and loving, who sees things through a lens of simplicity, right? So really the best version of you, your highest self. And so when we have those two pieces, aligned energy and action, you really can't go wrong. So it's as simple as that, right? It's that, these two pieces, as long as you've got both of them, I really feel that you're guaranteed to find your partner, the right partner for you, and then have it last into a beautiful, loving relationship.
So obviously I totally agree. I've been saying this for years. I kind of stole this from Tony Robbins, the two S's. You need state of mind and strategy, which is just a synonym for exactly what you said.
Yes.
But let's talk about the state of mind. You talked about a clear lens and being amazing. How the heck do you start this process of becoming the best version of yourself?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. I mean, I really feel that this is like a lifelong process. So some people might hear that and be like, oh God, like, am I always going to be working on myself? Or some people might see that and be like, well, that's great. I love to learn. I love to grow. And hopefully, you're the latter, right? Who sees this as an opportunity. Because even when you do get in the relationship, or especially when you're starting to date someone, it's really, really important that you're still applying, different principles, using different tools specifically around your mindset and how you're showing up so that the relationship does last, right? Sometimes kind of I won't say like a mistake, but kind of, a little bit of a mistake, I guess, that people make is when they start dating someone, things are going well, they kind of stop with the inner work. And that's when the insecurities can start to creep up again. We can start to overthink and, kind of experience doubt or fear. And that's when, things just go sideways, right? So it is a lifelong process. I really feel that the work doesn't stop, but that can be a good thing. And yeah, I mean, it's really about getting clear on what is coming up for you as an individual. So there's not really, a rule book or a step-by-step process that will work for everyone, kind of like a one-size-fits-all solution. And I wish there were, because so many more people would be in happy relationships, right? If it were that simple to implement, right? So it's like the formula, like we talked about, is simple, but the actual process, you know, can take some time. It can take, or does take, like, commitment, right? So it's really about getting clear for, like, what's coming up for you. And I believe that we all have this, you know, resistance, or some people call it your ego, or blocks, right? And oftentimes they're a bit hidden, like we don't really see them on the surface. So it takes that work to, like, slow down and get really clear on what those are for you and identify them, and then having the right tools, the right support in order to work through them. So yeah, it's a process that's a bit different for everyone. But it does require putting in that time and effort to do the inner work. And it can actually, I will say, be like kickstarted or kind of like skyrocketed with the outer work. So, you know, oftentimes we see things coming up for people, like fears or patterns, when they're putting themselves out there. I'm sure you see this with your clients all the time, right? When they, you know, create that online dating profile for the first time, or they go to, like, a speed dating event in their city. It's like all these nerves come up, all these fears. And that's where it's a really good opportunity to kind of, again, like, slow down and see what's that all about? You know, what kind of fear is this? Maybe where did it come from? So that we have something to work with to shift, right? To go from, like, a low vibration to a high one. So that place of our highest self. So yeah, it's a long-winded answer to your question, but hopefully that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Clarity on this, just to make sure. So I heard you saying that, like, blocks are the big problem. Would that also be synonymous with when people get triggered by certain actions? Is that also
Yeah.
true?
So a trigger can definitely kind of illuminate a block, for example. So let's say, you know, maybe someone is texting with a guy or something, and they say something that really, you know, really sets you off, or you're really offended by it, right? And again, it's like, whenever you have, like, whenever your energy, you notice, and mindfulness is, I talk about it so much because that's really the first piece of it, or the biggest piece of it, maybe the inner work, is to notice, like, when your energy is not at its highest self. So someone says something, it triggers you, you feel defensive, you feel angry, you know, you start overthinking. That's not your highest self, right? Like, that's not how we want to show up. So when we notice that, again, it's kind of an opportunity, if you can catch it, which a lot of people don't slow down to catch it, right? They're not in that practice. So it's just, they keep moving, and they think, oh, that's that person's fault. It has nothing to do with me, you know? But when we can slow down and we can catch it and just say, okay, interesting. You know, I don't love that person said that, but, like, what is it about what they said? Or what is it about, like, how I'm taking this? How am I feeling? You know, am I reacting from a place of hurt because someone hurt me that way in the past? You know, maybe there's still some healing to be done around certain things. So yeah, a trigger can definitely be an opportunity to highlight a block, for example. Yeah.
I got it.
Yes.
So I want to give, like, an example that I think fits this, so that people kind of stay with us.
Yeah.
And tell me if this is right. So Laura's in Canada. I have a client in Canada as well, outside of Toronto, and she was dating a guy that was 2 hours away.
Okay.
And they've been dating for like 2 months. And the plan is for him to come over to her place and spend the weekend, spend the whole entire weekend. But he's got this huge test on Thursday that if he doesn't pass it, he can't do his job anymore. Like, they're taking his license away, no more work. So obviously a big deal. So it gets to the weekend, and he sends her a text and says, you know what? I don't think I should come this weekend. I really need to spend the whole weekend studying.
Right.
And I'm also feeling a little sick.
Okay.
So double whammy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she was at a low vibration, and she starts freaking out and reaches out to me, and she's like, I guess he doesn't like me that much. And like, I can't
Mm-hmm.
believe this. He doesn't care about me.
Right.
And this is just ridiculous. Like, I don't feel special. This is not how I wanted to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be an example of like a trigger or a block or a low vibration moment for her?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really feel like it's any time where, you'll hear me kind of repeat a lot just to hopefully drive the message home, like any time where we're not in our highest self. And so, I mean, I use yogic principles, yoga philosophy to like as a tool, as a guiding tool with my clients. So there are different principles, for example, like kindness and compassion, or simplicity, or non-stealing, trust, right? Like trusting in yourself, trusting in a higher power, that you're being supported. So all of these principles, there's 10 of them in total, so I'm not going to go through all of them. But they're kind of, you can kind of think of them as like a guideline or like a roadmap sort of to like your highest self. So like the way that you want to show up, we don't want to show up, for instance, in this example, she was probably feeling, kind of like rejected, or like other things were more important than her. And so she was having insecurities or doubt in, the relationship and all of this. And yeah, that's an example, I think, of kind of the opposite of that in a small way. So where her vibration was kind of low, and you want to get to a space like where you're feeling good, right? Where dating feels fun. And, I often hear from women of like, online dating seems terrifying or icky, and like, I just don't want to be on there. And first of all, I get it, because I was there myself before. But when we are able to get to this space of like, things just feel simple and like ease and fun even, right? I know some people are like, fun, what? But like when we're in this space where it's just like, we feel supported, we know that like, as long as we keep showing up in the right energy, we keep taking action from that place, not a place of like insecurity or doubt or fear, then we're bound to find our right person, and for it to last. So yeah, it's just wanting to stay in that space like more consistently. And I think maybe a good point for me to mention is that no one is perfect, right? So we're all human. We all have this kind of ego side of us, or our blocks or fears, resistance patterns, right? Myself included, I think even the most enlightened people, Buddha or the Dalai Lama, like there's things, inside that need work, right? It's like that lifelong process, like I was talking about, opportunities for growth. So I just want to make a point that it's not that there's anything wrong with you, that you have these things to work on inside of you. We all do. And the reason that we have them is most often from things like past experiences, where we've been hurt, or things didn't turn out the way we had hoped for or planned. Or even things like conditioning, right, from like our society or our families even. So it's been built up in us. And again, sometimes we don't even realize that they're there or what they are, until we slow down, oftentimes until we get support from a coach to really like get clear on them, and then, the right tools and support to shift. So it's okay that you have them, and it's okay if you kind of fall back into those moments of doubt or fear and insecurity from time to time. Obviously the goal is to not be in that space too often. But when you do experience that, just like, one of the yogic principles is kindness and compassion, like I mentioned. So when you're there, just like calling on that principle and like treating yourself with kindness and compassion, right? And just kind of saying, okay, it's okay that I'm feeling this way right now based on, based on my past, based on what's happening right now. That's understandable. But, how can I raise my vibration up, or like, what's really going on here? And, maybe this guy just has to study extra hard for this test this weekend. And, maybe let's just give him the opportunity to, to reschedule the date for next week. Or, I also think there's a way that women can like initiate conversation or, kind of take action in a feminine way, right? So we often hear from coaches, especially women coaches, that you should always let the man lead. And I can understand that. And I see the benefits of that. I practice that for the most part myself, but we can kind of step forward in a way that is feminine, right? Again, it's like taking action from an aligned place. So one that's, again, like trusting and confident, not reaching out because we're feeling insecure and we need to hear back from someone, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know I touched on a number of different things there, but.
Yeah, so it sounds like in this specific situation, what we can do is, we can hop into some yoga.
Yeah.
And start enjoying that and forget about this for a moment and bring our vibration up, or bring oxytocin levels up, because obviously they're depleted because we're not in a happy place.
Right.
So we're doing yoga. We're like giving ourselves some kindness, like I deserve it. I rock.
Yeah.
And then, so now we're going back to this guy, and you talked about being feminine. I'm so excited about what we're about to talk about. Because I think that we're missing a piece, and a lot of coaches are talking about being feminine and sitting back.
Yes.
But then there's something at a higher level that can add value to the relationship, not just sitting back.
Yeah.
So now we're in our feminine side. What could we say to this guy to start making the relationship better? What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I love this. So I do want to say first too, though, that so I am a huge advocate for yoga. I have my yoga teacher training, and I use yoga philosophy as a tool with my clients. And so I highly encourage them to practice like physical yoga, because I just think, that's how I discovered yoga philosophy. And even before discovering these principles, the practice of doing yoga consistently just made me feel so good from both like a physical standpoint and a mental or emotional standpoint. So I definitely do recommend like the physical yoga piece, but actually what I focus on with my clients, and so it's totally fine if they don't want to do physical yoga, is practicing these 10 principles. And they are really around like your mindset. So if you don't like yoga, you're totally fine, right? It's totally fine. But it's really these 10 principles that I talk about is kind of like a way of thinking, a different way of being, really, so that you're in that aligned energy, and then also taking action. Commitment is actually one of the principles, which seems like, this masculine energy, right? Of like being really committed, results oriented, that sort of thing. But that's actually one of the yogic principles, is commitment or self-discipline. So yes, so I love that, going into this question, it kind of leads really well as like, if you're so committed to your relationship and, or your love life, wanting it to work, to like play an active role in it, right? So yes, so often we hear coaches saying, as a woman, you should be leaning back, you should be, really in your feminine and let them do all of the interactions, all the outreach, and this is where it could maybe get confusing for people, because we're kind of saying, maybe do a little bit of the opposite with that. And with the yogic principles, like there is one around trusting and surrendering, which is, I find, like a really feminine quality. But like I said, there's also this commitment, and self-discipline. So again, I think it's like, there's no harm in reaching out or, stating our truth, like what we really, want to say basically, but in a way that is more feminine. So in a way that is like trusting and like relaxed and at ease, right? So I think, again, it goes back to everyone is different. So like what I might say to this guy, if I were in this situation, might not work for someone else because it has to feel right to them. But I mean, it could just look something like, he says he can't make the date or whatever, the weekend date. And I mean, it really could be as simple as like, oh, that's too bad. I was really looking forward to it. Maybe we can, maybe we can reschedule for next weekend, study hard. You're going to do awesome kind of thing. Right. So it's like, it's communicating that, yes, she's bummed out because she's really looking forward to it. And that's her truth, right? That's what she is feeling. She's really upset. So you do want to communicate like what is true for you, but again, in a way that feels like not pressured, it's inviting. So he can kind of then take the lead, right? She kind of opened it up for, maybe we can reschedule. And then it does kind of put it back in, the ball back in his court so that he can say, yes, absolutely. Like, I want to study my butt off and ace this test. And then we can celebrate even harder next weekend, pop some champagne, we'll make it extra special. And and then you can kind of see where it goes from there, right? I think you just want to show up in that energy of like your highest self again, if that's relaxed, it's non-pressured. And kind of opens it back up. So, but yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to hear like what your thoughts are around that, or, what you would kind of guide your clients.
So I'm not going to answer because that was actually just a straight up home run.
Awesome.
I would have said that exact thing. But what I want to do now is I want to make life a lot harder for you. So our viewers get the best content.
All right. I like it.
All right. So this guy, kind of actually did happen, but
okay.
This was the second time he canceled in a row. And he's kind of letting her down at this point. I should have included that. I'm making it harder now.
Okay.
And now what I'd love to hear you do, if possible, is how would you present to him, and not nagging, because that's not in feminine energy. That's not high vibration.
That's right.
But in a sexy way, like how do you communicate to this guy like, dude, like this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And you're really letting me down, but not nagging at him. So now what do we do?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I mean, I feel like if you get to the point where it's pretty clear that the guy is just not making the effort, I mean, I will say, and like this might be hard for some people to hear, that, actions do speak louder than words a lot of time. And in this case, he is conveying that he can't make it. So his words are speaking them too. But it is true that a guy will make the effort if he wants to see you. And I was almost inclined to say that with the first scenario that you mentioned, that, yeah, we all have big priorities and stuff like that too. But I remember when Caleb and I first started dating, he had just got out of a long-term relationship. He was in school doing like his MBA, obviously had like guy friends as well, like different things on the go. And we saw each other so often. And I was like, whoa, like it was almost like my fear was coming up of like, is this too good to be true? Like what's going on here? Should we slow it down? But I was just kind of rolling with it and enjoying it. So it's, especially if they live 2 hours away and he's canceling the second time, I would be a little bit cautious of like, is he really that interested, to be honest, which again, like I know is not always easy to hear. But yeah, in that case, I mean, again, it would just like, everyone's different. So I'd want to kind of communicate with the individual and kind of see like, I always say for difficult conversations, you want to incorporate 2 of the yogic principles. The first yogic principle, which I touched on a bit, is kindness and compassion. So, that feminine energy, right, of like love, even when it's difficult, and especially when it's difficult, that's when we know we've like really embodied this principle. And then the second principle is truth. So you do want to say what you're feeling, but again, in a way that is like kind and understanding to a degree, right? So, I should say too, though, that like kindness and compassion it is not to be confused with like being a doormat or letting people walk over you. So one of the kindest things that you can do for yourself is to set boundaries, is to say that this isn't okay. And yeah, so it could just look like something of, hey, that's really too bad. Like kind of the same thing as before. But then it's like, let's see here. Like I've been really enjoying our time together and was kind of hoping that we could continue this, but, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you've got some other big priorities going on in your life right now. And maybe I'm not one of them, kind of thing, right? Like saying what she feels, but in a sense that kind of, again, like opens it up, gives him the opportunity to say, no, it's totally not that. Like, I really did poorly planning this time. Like, let me make it up to you. And then whether or not she gives him that opportunity to make it up to her is, again, it's like up to her. You want to trust your intuition, that kind of thing. But at least it kind of opens that conversation up. And then based on what he says back, you can kind of take it from there, right? So, maybe you do need to be a little bit more direct, or maybe the conversation actually is going great. It's when we go into a conversation with just the like straight up truth and it comes off in like an assertive way and not in our feminine, we rarely get the desired outcome that we want, right? So it's like, you want to go in with that approach of those two principles kind of like married together. And it's still not to say that you're going to get the outcome that you want, but that's where you can more easily like let go of any attachment to what you do want to happen, right? And non-attachment is another one of the yogic principles. So, in a lot of different situations, you want to tie in a bunch of these different principles. And that's why I highly recommend them to my clients to as different ways of thinking, different ways to approach situations. So yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that answer. So I want to highlight what you said at the very beginning. You said he's probably not that interested. And then you continued on. And I love that part because first of all, it's true.
I know.
Come on, 2 weekends in a row.
But it's true. Yeah.
It's true. And then what you went on to say is you started comparing how things went with your guy, Caleb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was like, it was Caleb. Easy and he made an effort.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'd like to do now, if possible, so clients are always coming to me with the problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we combat them and we figure out a solution.
Yeah.
And so what the problem with that is we keep talking about things that are wrong. And then we kind of like, oh, we know these things are wrong. All these things are wrong. And then we start looking for these wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
But what a lot of us coaches don't do is spend time talking about all the things that could be right. And if we start looking for the right things, then we find our partner and we're happy and it's easy and life is amazing.
Yeah.
So other than Caleb showing up and putting in the effort, what other things did he have that maybe others in the past didn't, that made him like, you were like, wow, this makes sense? And
yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if I would say, well, yes, of course, there were certain qualities about him that made it work. Right. But again, I think a big part of it was where I was energetically, because, the guys that I had dated before, it just felt challenging, to a degree, or uncertain was a big kind of pattern for me. It was like, we'd go out on a first date or we'd hook up or whatever. And it was like, I'm not really sure what this is, like where we'd be talking, things would seem to be going great, but it was just a little bit like, I always had that, kind of uncertainty or uneasiness. Like, are they seeing other people? Are they interested in me? Do they just want sex? Like all of those things. Right. And as I started to like really dive deep and do the inner work, things did start to shift. And so when you notice, like, the way it kind of works is you start to feel better. You start to feel lighter. It starts to feel a little bit more easier, a little bit more hopeful. And then your outer results reflect that. So I was starting to attract guys that were a little bit better of a match. And it was like, okay, this is getting a little bit better. And then, by the time that Caleb came into my life, it was like, wow, this feels really easy. And, I'm just going to kind of roll with this. And if he's not the right guy, then I'm really confident that I'm really close. Right. And I remember actually one of my best girlfriends even asking like, so are you interested in him? Because like, you're not, it feels different for you than anyone else you've dated, where you're like constantly checking your phone or, wondering if you should reach out, but not wanting to be in that masculine energy. Right. And, it was just like, yeah, no, I really like this guy, but it feels right. And we'll see what happens. And again, if it's not, like, that's okay. It wasn't a big deal. And so the fact that I was like, that was my highest self, that was the best version of me. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that it did work out, right? Because not only, and this is kind of for my woo-woo people out there, right? Not only is that like aligned energy attractive from like an energetic standpoint, but it's also, a physically attractive quality. When we see someone who is confident and like easy breezy, not overthinking things, right? Just going with the flow. So I actually give myself a lot of credit for that working out. But, of course, like we were just, I do think there is a lot to be said too for, the right timing. Well, yes and no, because it really wasn't the right time for him to be getting in the beginning of a relationship, which is why, it was another kind of piece of evidence, if you will, as to the fact that he did care about me. He was interested in me. Because like I said, he just got out of a long-term relationship, was going to school, all that stuff, working full time. But I never felt uneasy or, is this going anywhere? It was just like naturally progressing, and that was all good. And I say the timing piece because we actually went to high school together. So he's 2 years older than me. We would have been in school together for 1 year. And I knew of him a little bit because he dated one of my good friends, and I later dated one of his good friends. So it's kind of interesting that we would have crossed paths several times and hung out with many like close friends, had many close circles, but didn't, even really connect until we did. And things, went from there. So yeah, it was just like, I feel like I got to a different space energetically. And then of course, I was really clear on what I was looking for and what I needed in a partner, in a relationship. And was just continuing to do the work beyond, when we first met. So that's something I help my clients with too, right? If they're looking for a lasting love, it's really important that you don't stop the work. Like I said, when you first start dating someone, and arguably that's like the most important time to take a look at, what's coming up, what fears, what blocks, resistance, that kind of thing. So I think that answers your question. But if not, let me know.
It does. That was perfect.
Great.
All right. So one more kind of related to this.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, the quickest way to success is finding someone who's already doing it and rocking it out, and you just emulate them and you borrow their stuff, and then boom, you've got it.
Yes.
So I want to do that a little with you in terms of, and what's really exciting about this is you've got Caleb, right, who just came out of a relationship. And normally for most men, it's like, all right, I need to like chill. And anyone in a relationship, like, I need to get my bearings.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, have you ever asked him, like, what made you, like, just kind of shake him and be like, I can't mess this up right now. Like, I got to go forward, even though maybe I'm not ready, but like, she is great. And what was so amazing about you that maybe other women can learn and be like, wow, I can do that. That's easy.
Right.
What's the big thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Gosh, I wish he was home right now. We could pull him in. I mean, I think he would agree that it just felt easy. I mean, we met at a mutual friend's place, and then again, this is kind of like a funny, well, like funny synchronicity, but I think it's, you know, the universe. I believe there's a higher power that's kind of helping us out, right? So, just quickly going back to like the, you know, the two things you need is the aligned energy and the action. You know, the action piece is important. Like, I know I'm talking a lot about the energy, but you do need to put yourself out there so that you're working with the universe or with whatever you believe in, right? So, I remember specifically, so I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. And Caleb did at the time too. And like I said, we went to high school together. So we both are from Cape Breton Island. I don't know if anyone knows where that is, but it's a beautiful spot. Check it out. So it's about a 5-hour drive from where we live now in Halifax. And it was Thanksgiving weekend and we were both home with our families. And again, like wouldn't have really ever connected personally, not that either of us can remember anyway. And I remember, you know, I was home at my parents' place and I remember my mom saying, you know, are you doing anything tonight? You know, why don't you go out with some girlfriends? And I was like, yeah, I'm just not really in the mood. Like, you know, I don't think so. And, she was like, you know, why don't you go out? Like, your father and I are going to bed, like, you know, do something while you're home this weekend. It was like, you know what? Okay, sure. And I actually had all these excuses. So I was like, I didn't bring anything home to wear, you know, all this. Mom's like, I'll give you some clothes. So I was wearing, you know, a shirt of my mother's and her boots the night I met Caleb, which I think is just really funny. So I go to this mutual friend's place, you know, we're having a couple of drinks. We just kind of strike up a conversation. We're really connecting, flirting a little bit. Right. And, yeah. And so we kissed by the end of the night. We exchanged numbers and I kind of just thought, again, like, you know, easy breezy, like that was fun. You know, who knows if it'll turn into anything. And then on the way back, I was on the way back to Halifax, like a day or two later, he had sent me a text message. And then by the end of that week, we had gone out to eat, you know, to a restaurant that went great. And it just honestly like progressed so naturally from there. And yeah, I think that's the thing is it just felt really easy for both of us. Like we just connected on a level, I wouldn't say it wasn't a level that I hadn't connected with others with before. But again, this time I didn't have like this nervousness to a degree where it was like a not so great nervousness, right? Like an insecurity. It was more like, this is exciting, this is fun, but you know, we'll see what happens kind of thing. And I think that was just felt from him. But yeah, I'll have to ask him and get back to you. But I have a sense that it was just, you know, we know that like when we're enjoying something or spending time with someone, it doesn't feel difficult to fit it into our schedule. You know, like we all do it. And, even despite, you know, a really busy schedule at that time, it just happened naturally. And I remember thinking like, when the heck is he studying or you know, going to work or, you know, taking care of all the other things. Yeah. And it just flowed. So.
All right, cool. I love that.
Yes.
All right. So that was fabulous. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was definitely a very unique interview for me. So I'm really excited. I've interviewed hundreds of people, so this was very different than anyone else. So thank you.
Awesome.
For that.
Thank
That was
you.
fabulous. Now, I know you have a free gift for everybody, and I will plop it down in the description, and I will also pin it as a top comment, so it'll be on the top, so you guys can just click and go get it. But tell us, what is your gift?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I love supporting women who are ready for love that lasts, right? So they are ready to work on both the inner and the outer, the aligned energy and the action, right? Because we need both. We've got to help the universe out, and we also have to uncover those blocks and work through them. So I decided to open up my calendar for some free Soulmate Attraction breakthrough planning sessions. And what this is ultimately is a private one-on-one 30-minute session. We can do video if we want, or just audio. It's totally up to, you know, the person booking the session. And basically, we will help you get really, really clear on what you want and need in a partner and in a relationship. We'll help you discover what is really holding you back, right? So maybe some of those fears or resistance or blocks that you weren't quite aware of, perhaps. It's always really, really interesting to see what comes up in just 30 minutes. And then we'll take that and create a plan, or basically next steps for you, suggestions that I have to move forward so that you can attract in the right person and make that last, right? And again, like with ease and, and soon, right? We don't want to like drag out this process, right? So you have, guidance in order to move forward and have the love of your life, right? Because I just get so like passionate about this. And I know you do too, Mike, because it's like, we get to play an active role in what our life looks like, right? So we're not just completely sitting back. We are taking action, but it's from an inspired, aligned place. And so that's what I want to help women do, and create the love that they want and deserve in their lives, right? And it just, when we're in love, when we're happy, it just affects everything, it ripples outward and everything gets better, right? I'm sure you've seen that with your clients too, like their work life starts to get better, their social life starts to get better, their health. And so, I just really feel that we are here to live amazing lives, not just mediocre or even good or great lives. It's like, let's live the absolute best life we can. And if for you that includes a loving, lasting relationship, then yeah, let's do this. I'm here to support you. So yeah, feel free to take advantage of those sessions, and I'm happy to offer those to those who are really excited for that.
Yes, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Everyone enjoy that. All right. Awesome, Laura. Thank you so much. Guys, I will be putting out a video on Tuesday, and might even shock you with a little bonus one this week, because we're starting to get crazy. Starting to put out more than one a week, because I love all of you and we're getting into it. But anyway, Laura, thank you so much. We appreciate having you. And guys, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Bye.